Cura, 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 cura corazón. Cura, cura, cura. Namaste, beautiful soul. Welcome to the Blooming Lotus Healing Channel. My name is Jikara, and I'm a spiritual healing facilitator. If you're new to this channel, I just kind of wanted to let you know that I don't really edit the videos. This is just sort of like stream of consciousness, so please bear with me. If you are old to this channel, you probably have noticed that I haven't posted videos for a while. I've been dealing with some health challenges. And so I decided to really take the time to really focus on my health, to make sure that I could really show up on the channel the best possible way that I can. So I want to thank you for your patience, for your support, for the fact that some of you have reached out to see how I'm doing. I'm so grateful for all of you for reaching out. So I am good. I am fine. I was just really sort of redirected by spirit, and all of this sort of got started back when I went to the Vipassana retreat in October. I sort of was guided by spirit to shift a little bit of my energy inward, and it just sort of was a progressive aspect of shifting my energy. And it was really interesting because um, it was sort of leading me to a moment where I was experiencing a flare. So I've been dealing with an autoimmune condition for a while, and I wasn't really diagnosed until finally I found a rheumatologist that gave me a diagnosis, who was really determined to give me that diagnosis this year. And I finally got the diagnosis, and it was um, determined that I am experiencing lupus. And the reason why I don't say I have lupus is because I don't want to claim it. I want to really be very mindful of how I use my words, because this is an experience. I am here, incarnated in this experience for a reason. There's lessons here that I'm learning, that are part of my journey, my personal journey. So I want to invite you to do the same. If you're experiencing any sort of chronic condition, just to sort of change that conversation, so that you can within yourself, so that you can really start connecting to the lessons and what this experience is trying to teach you. But this is not what I really want to talk about or focus on today. Of course, since October, when I went into my Vipassana silent retreat back in October of 2023, I was actually in silence when all of this stuff happened in October. And there was, when I came out of the retreat, I saw the stuff on social media, and then all this stuff happening in the Middle East, and in sacred land, and such a sacred land. And I've been sort of kind of going back and forth with this, and watching videos, and sort of connecting to my heart, and trying to figure out, what does this all mean for us from a higher perspective. And the reason I've been silent is because I was still processing this. It was really hard for me um, to really see in real time how we haven't learned so many lessons yet as a collective. And this is the reason why I am setting the intention today to talk about the unconscious mind, because I feel that in order for us to really move past this and be able to heal and be able to start shifting our consciousness as a collective, we need to understand the mechanics of, or the at least the theories and the concepts of the unconscious, the collective unconscious. And why is this important? And I personally feel that this is an important thing for us to sort of have a conversation on, through my own experience. So I come from a dream weaving experience, and I've had firsthand experience with what collective groups or small groups can do to the energy, at an individual level, and how also coming together to shift the energy can do to a group and to the energy of a group. And of course, I experienced this at a microcosm level, sort of like, no more than 8 people were, actually, I think it was 12 or 16 people that would, reach a point of connection, right, on these groups, on this very, very small groups of people. And in these specific groups, we sort of work on our spirituality, on our mindset. We really do a lot of work on ourselves, and in using also the reflection, right, of the energy that is present in the group, and sort of looking at ourselves as part of that small fabric, and seeing how we incorporate our energy into it, and how we take also energy from it, and how when we have a consensus, we can come together and shift the energy from a negative to a positive. And I have experienced this firsthand, so I know that this is possible. I know that a group of people or two groups of people can come together when and shift energies when there's sort of a consensus to do so. So the conversation here that we need to start having is about all of the all of the polarity that we've been experiencing so far here on this planet, especially when we talk about polarity too. I really want to be mindful of the fact that this is sort of the reality that we come here to this earth to experience, right? So if you're not familiar with the principle of polarity, okay, is basically a principle that states that everything in the universe has an opposite, or two poles, right? And it's expressed in many philosophies and traditions and sciences. And this is sort of like a conversation that happens very often in the community, in the spiritual community. We have the angels versus the demons, the positive and negative energy. There's sort of this conversation that we have alongside of the understanding that there's one thing versus the other facing each other. And so what I really want to bring here is sort of an Akashic perspective, a higher perspective in relationship to this, and understanding that this specific concept is sort of a program that is introduced at the planetary level for us to be able to experience both sides of the coin. So we have had many lifetimes where we and if you've been following this channel, or you've been following the concept of past lives, you can understand that you've had both the positive experiences in past lives where you were doing great things, and then you probably have had, let's say, the negative experiences. And I want to be very mindful of these two words that I'm using. I'm using it for the purpose of understanding, right? Not that these necessarily have to be a way of judging, right? This is not judging at all. This is sort of so that we understand these concepts, and we're able to sort of integrate this. So going back to what I was saying, so we have had the past lives, right, where we may have been the bad guy, the one that was doing negative things, and then we have had past lives where we were the good guy, where we're doing positive things, right? And we may have had past lives where we were just neutral and we're doing anything. We're just sort of in the middle. And all of this, I bring this forth for us to reflect upon, so that we can start recognizing that what's happening in front of us, right, is sort of an opportunity for us to stay curious about what's happening, and how we are reacting to that, how we get triggered towards this is sort of an invitation for us to look within. And so when we have these very difficult situations, where, obviously when we want to invite change, there's sort of this action that we have to take to make the change. But the important thing that we need to realize here is that when we take this action forward, we need to recognize, where are we coming from? We need to have a clarity of where we're coming from when we're taking this action forward. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because I've been observing for the past 6 months how people are looking to take action, but there's sort of this action that is coming from an unconscious way, right? And what I mean by that is that the unconscious, right, the unconscious aspect of ourselves is sort of driving the driving force behind the the actions, the words, the conversations. And when we look at that, we got to realize that we're not existing in a vacuum, right? And that we are being affected in some shape or form, and sort of infused in some shape or form with each other's energy. And so one of the things that I was sort of talking to a fellow healer this week, and we were sort of going back and forth and talking about this. This is a conversation that a lot of us are having, and we're trying to figure out how can we bring healing. For those of us who want to bring healing into the world, we want to acknowledge, right, that there is pain and suffering, and we want to honor that and hold space for that. And at the same time, we want to also recognize that there's sort of an opportunity for us to start shifting that energy. And of course, for those people who are ready, not everyone is in a position that are ready to shift the energy because they're sort of in a survival mode, and we have to also recognize that, right? And then so we get to also invite, right, the um we get to invite peace, or we get to invite the cessation, right, of actions that are perpetuating the pain and suffering, right? And that's one thing that we definitely get to involve ourselves in. But the caveat here is that, are we coming from a place of healing and love, or are we coming from a place of anger and frustration? And that energy is what's going to infuse, right, those actions that we take. And that's why it's so important for us to recognize when we are sort of in this path. How are we being influenced by the energy, the because anger, frustration, war, uh murder, all of these are energies, right, that are being expressed and in some shape or form are affecting us, right? Especially when we are, in the constant consumption of information that sort of creates a constant reinforcement of that energy, right? And so then it's sort of hard for us to disconnect from that and reassess where we are if we don't take time to breathe and be in our energy and release and transmute, because there's something else that is happening within us that we need to pay attention to. So today, with this whole thing that I'm trying to say here, I wanted to bring forth the concept of the collective unconscious. And this is the collective unconscious was introduced by Carl Jung. And I'm looking at this on Wikipedia. You can find this, and I'm going to leave on the description below. I'm going to leave the link to this so you can read it. So this is basically open to everyone to read. So the collective unconscious refers to the unconscious mind and shared mental concepts. Think about that: mental concepts, shared mental concepts. Okay. It is generally associated with idealism, and it was first coined by Carl Jung. Okay. So according to Jung, the human collective unconscious is populated by instincts and as well as archetypes, ancient primal symbols such as the great mother, the wise old man, the shadow, the tower, the water, and the tree of life. If you're someone, right, who reads tarot, who's interested in tarot, you can potentially feel the connection there, right, with these archetypes. These are psychological archetypes that exist, and we sort of exist in these archetypes throughout. And sometimes we shift throughout our life, or maybe we stay on one, or we have a main one that we sort of connect to throughout our life, and then we sort of shift throughout our life into different ones while remaining with a main one. But either way, what I'm trying to say here is that if we really look at the concept of the collective unconscious, we can then recognize that there is a beehive, right? sort of mindset or mind that we all plug into, and that we all feed off of it, and we also we receive from it, but we also are feeding into it. And so we want to be mindful of how are we feeding into that collective unconscious. And of course the unconscious, it's unconscious, so we don't know it's there. So that's why this invitation, or the purpose of this video, is to sort of get you to think and get you to bring that concept into your awareness, so that you can start uh, you know becoming a little bit more curious. And you know the other thing that I wanted to mention to here is, so there's this is a specific excerpt that is from the book of The Significance of Constitution and Heredity in Psychology. This was published in November of 1929 by Jung. And this is what he says about the collective unconscious. Okay. And the essential thing psychologically is that in dreams, fantasies, and other exceptional states of mind, the more far-fetched mythological motives and symbols can appear autochthonously at any time, often appearing apparently as the result of particular influences, traditions, and excitations working on the individual, but more often without any sign of them. So think about that for a minute. These primordial images or archetypes, as I have called them, belong to the basic stock of the unconscious psyche and cannot be explained as personal acquisitions. Together, they may be together they make up the psychic stratum, which has been called the collective unconscious. Okay, so think about this. What Carl Jung is trying to say here is that we sort of have this like very like this basic sort of input of information, that, or we have this basic library of information at the unconscious, right? Which is the Akashic Records tap into that, right? And we have this sort of like this baseline of information, which goes back to what I was mentioning earlier, and I've mentioned also in the past, right? Where we have programs that are originally introduced, right, into into this specific reality, so that we can learn lessons. So there's going to be sort of like a theme, right, or different themes. That I think that's the best way to say it. So different themes that we're going to be connecting to, right, that are part of the collective unconscious, right? And so this sort of brings us back into the conversation of, oh well, you know what? Maybe the fact that if we look back at history and we see how as a human race, we've been sort of doing the same thing over and over again, maybe we're connecting to a specific aspect of the collective unconscious that is there, that we don't necessarily have to connect to that anymore. We can choose as a collective to start shifting our awareness, right, into a different place. However, when we don't know, we don't know. So we continue to react and to make decisions just on auto mode, like almost like an autopilot, right? And so my invitation to you today, if you're watching this video and you're watching it until now, my invitation is, you know what? Start questioning, right? Where is this concept for me that I am connecting to so deeply, so strongly? What is this concept, right? Where is it coming from? And is it really mine? And can I give myself the opportunity to reprogram myself into a different concept, right? This is the whole idea of hypnotism in the first place, right? Sort of like looking at ourselves as a computer, and the computers can have different programs, and we can interact with different programs within the computer, right? And so like recognizing that we have that opportunity to do that, not only at the individual level, but also at the collective level. Right? There's sort of like this server, right? That we're sort of connecting as a collective. We don't have to continue using that server. We can change servers and go to a different one, right? And start receiving the information from that other server with other programs, with other ways. And this is where this is what we're talking about when we're talking about the new earth. What we're talking about is, hey, invitation. The planets, and spirit and the universe is inviting us to disconnect from this old server that is outdated and it hasn't served in any shape or form, and let's go ahead and move into the new earth where we're connected to the earth. We're working with the wisdom of our ancestors, which they knew how to work alongside with the earth. We have the technology now to do so, right? And do even better, right, than our ancestors did. So we can shift, right, our consciousness. And I'm talking about one aspect, right, which is being one with the earth and connect and treating our earth properly, but also treating each other properly, making sure that we're loving on each other, and respecting each other, and being open to each other and connecting to the heart, connecting to each other's heart, connecting to the heart of Mother Earth, right? And so when we think about it, when we think about this concept, and this is another thing that I wanted to mention, which is the next paragraph here. When we connect to the concept, then we can really see ourselves as the tabula rasa, right? If you've never heard of this concept, is the fact that what Jung says, right, that our mind is sort of like this blank slate that we're able to sort of program into different ways. And so if we look at it from that perspective, we can say, you know what, maybe at this moment I can give myself permission to go back to the beginning of my essence, of my time, of my soul, right? Let me see, how is my soul experience, and I'm talking about past lives, or how is my soul experience affecting me at this very moment, and can I start shifting the energy, which is basically what I do, right? I go in and I clear the Akashic Records. Well, it's not really me. I hold space for you so that you can clear this alongside with your higher self. But the reality, not but and the reality here is that we have that opportunity to start shifting, not only energetically, so that we don't go back into the karmic loops and the entanglements and the energetic noise. Then we have the opportunity to start taking those actions forward, to start, let's say, unplugging from that old server into the new server, right? And so my hope for you today is that when you think about the collective unconscious, you can recognize that we are a computer that has lots of programs. Those would be, let's put it this way. So think about it this way. You are a computer, right, with your own programs, and those come from different lifetimes, and you have all this other stuff. And sometimes we need to clean up, right? We need to clean up all that stuff. But then there's also the fact that we're connected to a server, and that's the collective unconscious, right? That server, we can change timelines. We can unplug from that server and plug to a different server where the timeline shifts into a higher timeline, a timeline that is for the highest good of all, the highest good of humanity, the highest good of each other. When we still connect to the old server, which is letting us know that is me versus you, my suffering is better than your suffering, my people suffered more than your people, I was here first and you are here second, and so I have to be here first, and then you have to go away, and I have to, all of this, like, sort of like, if you think about it, it's sort of like a little kid. It's sort of like that consciousness of the ego. When you think about a kid, a lot of times kids are really connected to the ego. They're still learning about their journey, and that the egoic mind is sort of more present. And you're gonna have, like, no, me first, no, I want this first, or then you have the ego. That's when the ego is there, right? It is sort of operating. So the when we're operating from a place of spirit, from the place of the heart, then we get to say, oh, I love you. And all that I do and all that I say affects me and affects you. Even my thoughts can affect you and can affect me. And so, because of that, I'm going to take responsibility for my own actions, my own thoughts, my own words. And if each person got to do this on this planet, if each one of us started to connect to the idea, right, that there is an opportunity for us to disconnect from that old way, and that there is a way to feel better. Because I'm going to tell you something, I doubt that anyone that is operating under the old server of hate, of separation, of fear is feeling good. I can assure you that you're, if you're operating from that, you're probably feeling very heavy. You're probably not sleeping well. You're probably not feeling happy with your close friends and family. You're probably feeling this disdain towards other people, and you and this uncomfort inside of you, because that's not where we're meant to be existing in the first place. That's the reason why a lot of times spirit pushes us into, or our higher self will push us into certain situations where we're so uncomfortable. And that's when we think about the rock bottom. If you ever heard about the rock bottom concept of in alcoholism or addictions, but we can also talk about the rock bottom of a spiritual awakening, right? Where you are so uncomfortable, you're all the way down in the lowest point that you could ever be. You're uncomfortable to the point where, like, the egoic energy is so hard that you have no choice but to look up and say, okay, I don't want this anymore. I can't do this anymore, because it could potentially be affecting your mental health. This is affecting your physical health. This is affecting your spiritual health. It's affecting you in every aspect when you're connecting to this old server that we've been sort of uh, um, trying to make work in some shape or form. And unfortunately, it doesn't work. It just doesn't work for us. And so now that we are in this Aquarian age, right, and that these are the conversations we're having now, right? And I'm sure that there were many mystics and many spiritual people in the past that may have had these conversations, but maybe people weren't ready, and maybe they were burned. Maybe they were burned at the stake. Maybe they were beheaded. Maybe there was like sort of a and that's still happening now, where there's the sort of like the public beheading now is no longer a physical one. It's sort of more in the social media, where we're sort of doing this public beheading towards other. That's not the way to go, right? And so I have to disagree with a lot of people who have been sort of attacking each other and not coming to an understanding that you are still, like, even though you're trying to change something, you're still operating under that same discordant energy that the opposite side, right? Remember that polarity, the opposite side. There's really no opposite side. We're all the same. But for the sake of this, that the opposite side is operating from, right? And so when we operate from these spaces, then we sort of don't allow change to happen. And I can tell you firsthand, then you're probably asking, well, Jakara, that's all good and dandy, but what can I mean, I need to do something. I need to do something. I need to make a change. I need to make a change at this moment. And I guess I'll have to go back to what Michael Jackson said. If you want to make a change, you have to look in the mirror, right? And I'm paraphrasing. I know that the song goes a little different, but not but and the interesting thing about this is that if we want to make these changes, if we really want to change the collective unconscious, then we absolutely must start working on ourselves. First of all, looking at ourselves and saying, you know what? Yes, I am a blank slate. Let me go ahead and give myself permission to be in that blank slate. And what is the new programming that I want to bring forth? Because I've been programmed by society, I've been programmed by my family, I've been programmed by everyone else. But I get to choose now what programming I want to put in my system now. I was programmed at one point, but I get to choose now. I get to choose. And then we get to say, you know what, I'm going to choose love, right? My invitation is for you to choose love. Of course, I'm biased to love, because that's what is going to bring the healing for us. That's what's going to allow everything to cessate, and for those who need to grieve, to be able to grieve, to go through their process of healing, and then eventually come into a place of homeostasis as a human race. But in order for us to do that, right, We must start making change, right? And it's different. And I know this is a big ask, right? Because this is more complex than what meets the eye, and I understand that. We have a lot of layers that we need to address: the layers of leadership, the layers of government, the layers of military, or the layers of even borders. There's so many layers, right, that we get to sort of address, in and it's not going to take one lifetime. Okay, we are actually at this point, this is years of constant karmic entanglement, and also disentanglement. And I believe, I believe, I have hope, and I have faith that we are going to find our way as a human race. Yet the only way that we can do this, the only way that we can find our way, is by first finding the way back to our own hearts. And once we do that, then we get to invite change, right, in our own lives, in our own relationships, in the difficult relationships with our parents, in the difficult relationships with ourselves, with our bodies, with our mind, in the difficult relationships with maybe a friend that you don't talk to anymore, maybe someone that hurt you in the past, maybe in the difficult relationship of forgiving, right? And of actual forgiveness. Sometimes some of us have a hard time forgiving, so that we have a really hard relationship with forgiveness in the first place, because we're so hurt. So giving ourselves permission to really address those parts of us that feel in pain. And a lot of us, and that's a big ask, and I know it is, because it takes a lot of effort to really take time, to heal these aspects of us. And when we do this, we don't necessarily have to do this with, you know I mean, some people do this by going to a meditation retreat. They do this by going to an ayahuasca retreat. They take sacred medicines, the entheogens, mushrooms, and other, like iboga, and other medicines, sacred medicines, that really reminds us of who we are, and it helps us release all of that, which are very powerful. Also with the Akashic Records, clearing the energies. But it can start with you, with journaling, with allowing yourself to write a letter to the person, even if it is writing a letter that, where you tell them all the things that, all this ugly stuff, and taking it out of your system and putting it in paper and then burning it, creating a little burn ceremony for yourself. Little things like that will shift so much on this planet. And I know it sounds sort of like, okay, yeah, like my little burn ceremony is going to do anything. It is. It absolutely is. Imagine if everyone did that and gave themselves permission to forgive, gave themselves permission to let go. Okay? And I feel like there's a misconception too for a lot of people who are holding on to the pain of their ancestors, the pain of the group, their group of or their people. And I see this happening in so many with indigenous tribes. I see this happening with many groups, many groups. And when I you know the one thing that I notice with the groups that are holding on to the remembrance of the pain of our and suffering of our people, when we hold on to this, right, we are not allowing ourselves to let go. We're still grieving. We're still grieving. And that's where we are now as a collective, my dear soul. We are grieving. Look at the grief that we are going through. When you start seeing it from a place of healing as a healer, because all of you are healers, okay? All of us have that archetype of healing within ourselves. When we start seeing that we are grieving, and that we get to start shifting that grief and start moving into all the different stages of grief, we then get to do that shadow work within ourselves and get to the point where we eventually, as a collective, will release the grief. So if you feel at this moment that There's so much confusion, so much pain. I cannot explain how many times I've felt this pain, and I've cried. I've cried for humanity so many times, for the human race, for all the groups that have been wronged. There's been so many groups of, people, just different things that have happened throughout history that are still stored in the bodies, stored in the DNA of all people, whether it is from war, whether it is uh, from curses, whether it is from rejection, whether it is from violence, so many things, right? We could go here forever, but all of these things are still stored, and so we want to also recognize, okay, not only is my mind a tabula rasa and I get to reprogram it in the way that I decide to, I get to do that. I have that power, right? We get to empower ourselves. Then we get also to say, you know what? Some of this might not be my pain. Some of this triggering that I feel inside, could this potentially be coming from my ancestors? Could this potentially be something that my ancestors they're bringing forth so that I can heal it? They're bringing forth so that I can see it. They're bringing forth this opportunity for me to stay curious, for me to see the reflection of what they've been through, so that I can move through this grief that they didn't get the chance to move through. That is my calling to you, dear soul, is for you to see that there is an opportunity for us to stay curious and see how all of this grief, that all of this shadow, all of this mess that is showing up is an opportunity for us to heal. That's literally what Spirit is showing me. The other thing that I wanted to say too before I go, Spirit showed me this sort of this cloud, right? There was like this vision. Sometimes I get these visions of this cloud, and these different clouds, right? These different clouds that are over the earth, and these clouds are sort of the unconscious energies, right? And they sort of become a like an entity. These clouds sort of become like an entity. So when we're plugging into these conversations, we want to be very mindful of how we are being swayed into the energy of the majority, right? And so when we're being swayed into the energy of the majority, we want to stay present and practice energetic hygiene, so that we can recognize, okay, this is not my thought, this is a collective thought. My thought is this, right? And say, okay, this is collective thought, this is my thought, these are my values, I'm going to operate from these values. And I can tell you that this is important because there's so much energetic entanglement and energetic noise that happens when we're going on social media, when we're going on, when we're watching TV, all of this media. There's a reason why it's called programming, right? TV programs. TV programs. There's a reason why they're called TV programs, is because they're programs. They're literally programs that give us like this opportunity for us to. That's why I don't subscribe to watching TV programs that are violent or anything like that, or shows or movies that are scary or violent. I don't subscribe to that, because that's opening me up to all of this stuff and programming all this energy into my mind, right? And normalizing things that it shouldn't be normalized. I want to be sensitive. I want to be able to feel empathy for others. I want to be able to be sensitive to the hurt and pain of others, and not just see it as like something normal, right? And so I want to invite you to look at that as well. When all of the all of this collective programming, right, is sort of like this cloud or this entity blob, let's just say, that when we connect to it, it can sway us into feeling and thinking, and viewing the world in that way. So if you're feeling this immediate trigger when you watch something online, when you're I want to give you a word of caution. Pay attention to that. Pay attention to that and give yourself permission to unplug from that, because sometimes it's a little hard to unplug, but just go ahead and unplug from that and go meditate. Go cleanse. Go connect to the earth. Go connect to your heart. Remember who you are. Remember that you are a beautiful soul that is here to do so much good. We're here to do so much good. All of us, each one of us, are here to do beautiful things. And when we give ourselves permission to see that, then we're able to say, okay, you know what? I'm going to stick to my heart. I'm going to stick to what I know is best for me and for my highest good and for the highest good of all. And that's the most important thing. It must be for the highest good of all. It must be. If it's not for the highest good of all and only for the highest good of some, then it's going to hurt someone. And we don't want to subscribe to that ever. Because then there's more karmic entanglement. It's not worth it. So I really hope that you enjoyed this video. I know that I went here on a rant for a little bit. It's a long video, but I want to invite you to subscribe to this channel if you haven't yet. Like and share this video if you feel like this video can help someone. And if you want to work with me, I have openings for the month of June. We're now in June 2024. So I have openings. I'm more than happy to support you in your journey of clearing from collective programs and clearing all of that, and supporting you in your journey of reconnecting to your tabula rasa, to your clear mind. And you can go into my website, thebloominglotushealing.com, and I'm so happy, so grateful that I get to be of service to you in your journey of healing. So thank you very much, and I hope that you have a beautiful day, and namaste. Sana, 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 sana corazón.